Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Hardcore Minecraft Survival Guide. Today we are picking up exactly where we left off in our last episode, which is here next to this jungle village, or this savanna village, I guess, that kind of bleeds over here into the desert a little bit. But there's a lot of really cool things around this village, so let's go ahead and kind of explore what options we have and make sure that we are in a good spot. And this freaking bird, its chirp is making creeper noises right in my ear, and it's kind of freaking me out. But no matter. Looks like there's a bunch of coal we can start harvesting over this way. That'll be good. And then we have a couple of guys around here that we'll want to interact with a bit. But first things first, we're going to want to make sure we get a good feel for what we have, and we're also going to need to kind of set up a base of operations as well. So let me go ahead and make a chest so I can clear out my inventory a little bit. We'll just kind of set things up here on the side for a moment. And this is very much just so I can dump some stuff out of my inventory. I'm actually going to take this peony back for a minute. But clearing out anything that I don't absolutely need on me right now. So let's take this peony, turn it into some pink dye, and then combine that with our bed, because don't let anyone tell you differently, but pink bed is best bed. And now we've got a better inventory to kind of have a look around. Now, villagers are a really good place just in general, but here in the early game, they really help you make sure that you're maintaining a good pace of things. So here in this blacksmith shop, we've got ourselves 2 different iron pickaxes, and that's huge for us because it means that we don't have to use a bunch of our early game resources in making these, though I am going to prioritize my stone pickaxe at least until that one breaks. And we've also got some iron horse armor, which isn't, the greatest thing at the time being, or for the time being, but it'll be good once we eventually have ourselves some horses that we can use. Now, I didn't know that these these blocks could be spawned in on these structures, so that's kind of cool to see. But we're just going to kind of have to wander our way around town. This guy, he'll be very useful for us in terms of getting the resources that we need and making sure that we enter into the needed areas with the resources needed. Specifically, it'll be good to be able to have some ender pearls before we even go down into the nether area. Now, it's interesting that this water source block is positioned the way that it is, but it's not currently flowing out all over the place due to the hay bales that were stacked up around it. These will be really good sources of food for us, so we're going to go ahead and collect them up and put them to good use. Another thing that's always nice to have hay bales on hand for is they do decrease fall damage. I believe it's by 80%. So having one in your inventory that you can throw down under your feet if you take an unexpected fall can, in a lot of cases, save you from being in a very bad situation or completely losing out on your game altogether. Got ourselves another blacksmith over here, but nothing else interesting or of note in this house, so let's transition over to a couple of the other places. This one, I guess, is maybe a cartography house, because that's kind of the style that I've seen previously. Got ourselves a couple more emeralds, which is good to see. Some wheat, some tall grass, which I'll leave in there for now. And then we'll go ahead and put these other saplings in our inventory. And it looks like there's just kind of a very haphazard farm up on top of the... This is a very odd choice for having a garden put together. But let's have a look here. No, it's not a cartography house. It's just the world's worst house there. And a barrel that's hanging out on the ground with nothing in it, which is interesting. Maybe this is a house for like a fisherman or something. Got a cat running around here, and cats are useful for a couple of different things, but in all honesty, I don't care for cats, even in real life. Sorry. They're not my favorite house pet, so I personally wouldn't tame or breed them even here in game, just based off of that principle. But let's run around and have a look at a couple other things. Got some horses over here. That'll be good for when we eventually have a saddle. If we have a leather worker here in town, we can potentially prioritize doing a couple of trades with him to get him up to that. Got a few more cats running around town here, which will be good for just general creeper deterrent, because creepers don't like cats. But I myself will not be claiming any of the cats for my own. Despite their many different uses, it's just not going to happen for me. So now that we've got a bit more wheat in our inventory, let's pop up here. And this is kind of what I was mentioning, this being the general design for a cartography or cartographer villager. So we've got a couple of papers and a few maps, which will be nice to use. Paper, of course, can be used in firework rockets, but we're very far away from kind of playing around with those items, as well as making books and other items that are helpful or useful to us. A singular golden nugget here, a couple acacia saplings, some more seeds, and some more saplings. So nothing too terrible there. Of course, it could have been a lot better. Looks like we've got another blacksmith table and a few more of these hay bales that we'll want to grab while we're here next to it. And that ought to do it. So let's walk up to this building here on the hill, see what we've got here. And it looks like it's just a bed. And then actually a bunch of ready to harvest wheat up here. So that's kind of cool. Let's go ahead and swap in our wheat seeds, so we can start collecting up more of this loose wheat, and then of course replanting it down. Now there's probably a farmer that tends to this field, and in 1.16 they've updated the way that farmers work a little bit, so they're a little more efficient at their job. They can actually use their composters to create bone meal, which they can then use to accelerate the growth of goods in their farm. And interesting that we had a couple of melons hanging out there, but not attached to a vine. It appears that there are some stems up here. The problem is it's very difficult, if not impossible, to tell what type of plant you're getting from the stems. So you just kind of have to wait for them to grow and then start producing things. But this is very much going to be a place of base operations for us here in the early game. And here in the leather worker's hut, we do have a couple of extra slices of bread. So this guy right here that you're seeing, he is our resident leather worker, and he does have a chance to get a saddle trade further down the line if we can provide him with leather and other goods that he's looking for. He'll also sell you leather pieces of armor, but you know that doesn't make or break the bank. So it's just kind of interesting. But that is the tour of the village that we were needing to do to kind of get a feel for where we're at. So what we'll need to go ahead and do is make ourselves a kind of a starter house area and actually set up a more permanent shop right over here. So to do that, we're going to need to gather up some resources, which I'm not going to bore you with. So I will go ahead and collect those and then bring you back in once we've got some more of that, some more of those details ironed out. I'm going to seat my parrot buddy right here next to my stuff, just to make sure he doesn't run away from me. Oh, so we've got a couple of cows hanging out over here, which will be good for setting up a cow farm. We might go with the cow crusher design, or we might double over to something a little bit more traditional when it comes to cow farms. But we do have a couple more of our, or a couple more pieces of iron hanging out around here, which I'm never going to complain about, especially if it's this open, or this out in the open for us to just come through and collect. Because a lot of the time the iron that you're going to find is going to be a lot further underground and a little bit more difficult to, not difficult per se, but it's not typically lying out in the open like this. So it's nice to have some easier access to those types of items. And we're going to come over here to some of this diorite, collect some of that up, because that's a nice building block. Some people don't like it. I think that it looks a lot better now that it's on a more updated texture, though earlier versions of the game I do agree that it was just horrendous looking. One of the other nice things about where we're at is we're actually in a pretty good conjunction between a couple of different biomes. We've got our jungle biome still over here, so if we need to run over there and access some different types of wood for our builds, we absolutely can. And then we're kind of in an area that's primarily savanna, so that'll be good as well. And we've officially lost our stone pick, so we're going to transition over to using one of these iron picks over here from the village, as they will have a bit more digging speed for us, as well as better durability, or they'll last a decent amount longer. But let's see if we can track down some more of this diorite. I think there's a little bit over here. And then this is just a tiny little shaft, doesn't go down anywhere super meaningful. So we'll just kind of dig out this vein of diorite here. Alright, so we've got a fair amount of our diorite collected up here. We're going to use that a little bit in our flooring for the build that we start, because I do think that it makes a good accent piece on a floor. And let's go ahead and make sure that we get a bunch of this extra iron that we've got put together. We're going to, first things first, make a bucket, because buckets are incredibly handy for a lot of different things. But one of the biggest things that they're helpful with is making sure that you are safe from a lot of different things. You can kind of place the water down underneath you if you end up falling, which will completely negate your fall damage if you do it correctly. Similar to what you can do with the hay bale, where the hay bale gives a pretty significant reduction to it, the water will completely eliminate any and all fall damage you might take. And that does include water deployed out of a water bucket, which is typically referred to as being an MLG. So that is a very nice piece of kind of a challenge, if you will, for making sure that you are doing things correctly and properly. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start challenging myself a little bit with the build type we're going for. I haven't done a whole lot of building in a circular fashion, so what I'm going to start out with is kind of laying out an area that we're going to be doing for our floor. And I am going to lay this into the floor where we're currently at. So I will dig that up. And I think a good place to be, because this is going to be a house that we're going to want to rely on living in for quite some time. So I actually think that I'm going to make it 2 chunks, or 32 places across. So let me just get my sand together here. And then we'll go until this reads 32. Unless I run out of space. Let's see how many we've got there. 22. So we need 10 more spaces. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That'll bring us out to 32 this way. And then we can start laying out our floor. And I'm going to mine up a little bit more cobblestone just to get us the edge of where we're looking for. And then we will mark out the circle. So I've just got a little circle graph that I've pulled up on the other screen here that'll help me make sure that I do the circle correctly. I don't make it oblong. I don't have items missing out of it. And that's the best place to do, the best way that I have found to do circles, or have heard of doing circles, especially if you are not familiar with crafting or placing items down in a circular fashion. So let me just get a bunch of cobblestone put together here. I'm probably going to need more than a stack, but I'm going to at least start with that. All right, so starting here, we're going to need to go 4 over. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we come down 1, and that'll go 1, 2, 3. And then from here, we'll go over 1. And then 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And this makes up 1/4 of the circle we're going for. So that gives us a good starting point there. That makes up a half of our circle here. And there's a little bit more clearing I have to do. It's going to come and butt up right up against this wall, so I'll probably do a little bit of some terraforming or taking some things down over here. Buddy, you are never getting out of that water pool if you keep trying to go up that waterfall. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. We've also picked up a little bit of andesite here. I don't anticipate using that currently, but plans change sometimes. So let's head over here and finish up that last section we did. Now let's work out the last third. And just like that, we've got our ring mapped out. So the only other thing we need to do is clear out the inside of it so we can actually put in a floor. All right, so we've made some pretty good headway on this, but before we progress any further, my inventory's filling up a little bit, and I don't have enough wood to make another chest as of yet. So we're gonna start working out a bit of our floor plan, actually. And as I say that, I realize that I have made a minor miscalculation here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over here to our furnace, and we're gonna put 3 pieces of cobblestone in here to make ourselves some stone. Because I've got a lot of this diorite, which is all well and good, but I need it to be in a little bit of a different format, and there's a really good way that we can make sure that that happens. So as soon as we get all of these cobblestone smelted back into stone, we can make a very important building block, or resource block, I guess I should say. And that is going to be our stone cutters. You do that by placing 3 stone blocks down here, which you can get, as you saw, either by smelting up some cobblestone, or if you harvest stone with a silk touch pickaxe, you can get that as well. And then you turn it into a stone cutter by adding a single iron ingot to the top here. And this is a very, very helpful building material and resource, because it allows us to quickly make different variations on blocks. And we're going to turn our diorite into polished diorite, at least for the diorite that we put here in the floor. And we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a chessboard type pattern. And eventually I will be filling this out with blackstone, or polished blackstone. But I don't have access to that yet, because you need to go over to the nether and either trade with piglins or farm it up yourself. So we will be putting a temporary placeholder block in the floor in these spaces where the diorite is not currently being placed. And I'm excellent at this, as you can tell, because I'm placing it perfectly every single time, he says sarcastically. That's actually a great spot for us to mosey on over this way. Interesting that we are getting squid spawning in this little pond here next to our village, and it's interesting that the pathfinding is also not seeming to work for a couple of these mobs over here. Alright, so that is, I guess, half of the floor done, because we have all of our polished diorite in place. And of course, I will eventually be filling this out with blackstone, but for now, we do need to put in a placeholder block. So let's see. I have a lot of sand at my disposal, but I don't think that that's what I want to use here. So let's think about this for just a moment. And honestly, I think the easiest one for us to use is going to be this. I think I'm gonna try this acacia wood and see how I feel about it. So let's walk over. So let's walk over to this tree, knock it down, and then throw that into the mix and see how we feel about it. Honestly, I don't think that looks too bad, and it'll be pretty light on resources for getting things started here. And the best part is once we're done, we can recycle it back into planks and other things. So let's go ahead and plan on that. And to make sure that we can do this a little bit quicker, we're going to use a little bit more of our iron to craft up an axe. Let's walk over to this tree, see if there's any saplings that have fallen on the ground here, easy to pick up. I have, which is great. And my guess is there's probably a couple of them that have gone down there. Oh gosh, that's... I could fight him, but honestly, I think I'm just going to leave him be. And, well, I just don't want to use up any of my axe's durability because I have some pretty limited resources for the time being. So let's walk over this way. And let's knock down this tree that's right here next to our base operations. Because hitting mobs with your weapons uses up some of their durability. I know, surprising concept. But iron weapons can be used up to a total of 250 times. That's assuming that you don't have something like unbreaking factoring into that. So I'd rather not waste 2 or 3 swings of the axe at this stage on attacking a hostile mob. Of course, once we have done some more extensive resource gathering, I'm not going to feel as bad about using it. Or once we have, you know, enchanted gear, we can do that a little bit as well. Also, if you're having difficulty accessing a block, you can kind of jump up and down a little bit to knock it out, and it does kind of sort of save your progress as you do so. It's probably not the greatest thing to do when you're low on hunger or don't have easy access to food, but we can manage. At this stage, we've got a decent supply of foodstuffs. So sometimes Minecraft world generation does funny things, and you wouldn't really notice, you know, over here towards my left. But if you look up here, there's just a floating pile like 6 stone right there in the sky, and it might be somehow connected to whatever this is. But yeah, it's always interesting to kind of see how things happen and not have any explanation as to why they happen the way that they do. But we're still getting the last of the wood we need put together for finishing up our temporary filler block on the floor. Alright, well there we are. This is our temporary floor for our starter base here. I guess it's going to be our base. I wouldn't call it a mega base. We may work on that a little bit later on the series, depending on how things go. But I kind of like how this came together. I think that the variation of the logs being oriented in different ways really helps tie this together. And it is temporary because we will eventually be fixing the acacia, or replacing the acacia with blackstone. But we first have to get access to blackstone. So that is definitely going to be a project for a much later episode once we have made our way over to the Nether. But I'm going to go ahead and get a couple of other things put together and set up here. Might do a little bit of off-camera work between this episode and the next. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave it a like. Don't forget to subscribe for more daily content. And we'll be back with the next episode of the Hardcore Minecraft Guide next Saturday. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.